Hello and welcome back to the Fight and Talk 2 channel. We are the Fight and Talk 2 team. Myself, Mr. Fight and Talk, and in Casual Crush Corner, we have George. How are we doing, George?
All good, mate. Thank you. All good.
Good to hear, my friend. Good to hear. If you are a first-time listener, feel free to drop us a like, drop us a subscribe. It all helps, and it makes us feel so much better now that we're up to 150 subscribers. It does mean a lot to us when people listen to our content. Either watch it on YouTube or you can find us over on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and Google Podcasts as well. So with that all said, we have another fight card next week. The UFC, as we say all the time, are just flying these fight cards out to us, constantly, non-stop. We have the pay-per-views, the numbered events, then we have the fight night stuff, and then we have the UFC on ESPN stuff. It is just non-stop. And this weekend is no different. We've got Cyril Garn versus Alexander Volkov in the main event. A very, very young MMA fighter hailing from France. And obviously France have only just kind of let mixed martial arts be legalized, I suppose it would be called, in their country, which is baffling. They're obviously a little bit behind the world, but he's coming up against Alexander Volkov. And it's at a very, very good time for the European fans, which is glorious. I know, George, you're going to be working this Saturday, as will I, but at least we can watch it at 2:00 in the morning, but on our terms. We can watch it on our terms. It makes the difference. What are you looking forward to on this fight card? Because there's a lot of unknown names on the prelims, and then as we get up to the main card, there's a few more names that we want to talk about. But there's your guy, your man in Crush Corner, is fighting on the prelims. Tell me a little bit about him.
Yeah, man, my guy, my pick for 2021, which we did right back in, I think, on our first podcast we did together. I think we picked like our guys to watch in 2021. And my guy was Shavkat Rakhmonov, the guy out from Kazakhstan who now trains at Sanford MMA in Florida, with Rafael Fiziev, another guy from that part of the world. So, a really, really highly thought of welterweight who is a former M1 global world champion. And he comes into this fight with Michel Prazeres, as a very heavy favourite at, I saw today, -365. So he's very highly backed going into Saturday. And, for good reason as well. Prazeres is a pretty small welterweight. And Rakhmonov is going to have an 11.5-inch reach advantage over Prazeres, going into this fight. So my guess is that the range is going to be pretty hard for Prazeres to kind of get near to Rakhmonov, and he's just going to pick him apart, to be honest. So I think the other thing to look at with this is Prazeres hasn't fought in 2 years, which is a long time to not be fighting. And at 39 years old, this definitely feels like a bit of a layup, a certain layup for Rakhmonov, who is so highly rated, 14-0 in his career, and had that amazing first-round submission victory over Cowboy Oliveira on Fight Island last autumn. I just think that this guy is another guy who's just going to find his way up the rankings very quickly over the next kind of 18 months, 2 years. And he's certainly, for me, I genuinely think this guy's going to be a title contender in the next couple of years. He's got a long time to develop. He's only, I think, 26 years old, but he's got all of the kind of attributes, the height, the reach, the great kind of groundwork, the great striking that's developing really, really well at the moment. I think he's got all the kind of skills that he needs to be a title contender. The last thing I'd say about this fight is Prazeres has never been stopped in his career, but I think that's probably going to be the first time he does get stopped is this Saturday. I fancy Rakhmonov to get it done. And I'm going to go for a KO victory in round 2 for my guy, my pick of 2021, Shavkat Rakhmonov.
Yeah, because that was going to be my next kind of question, because out of the 13 wins, he's got 7 KO/TKOs and 6 submissions. This man has never been to decision. And when you're fighting someone that has never been finished, there's a lot of weight on the shoulders, isn't there? And obviously being 13-0, fighting someone that's had 26 wins and 3 losses, do you think the experience here with Prazeres is gonna pay off, or do you think it's just going to be a whitewash here for the Kazakhstani?
I feel like with these fights, those records 26-3, they look really attractive, and they are. That's an incredible professional record. Don't get me wrong, but I feel like there's young guys that come through and they're just, they're just a different breed. Those modern day fighters. I think The other fight I can think of, which obviously is at a different weight, was when Leron Murphy fought Eluzao, who I think Eluzao had like a 27-3 record, and Leron Murphy was like 13-1, 14-1, something like that. And despite the record looking kind of so good for Eluzao, it was kind of you still felt that Leron Murphy was going to kind of like pretty comfortably win that, which he did in the end. So I still think that'd be the same. I still think that Rachmanov will keep up that record of not going to decision. I think he will find a way of finishing it. And yeah, he'll move on, and hopefully we'll see him out before the end of the year again.
Absolutely. He's a highly, highly touted individual, being very, very young as well, 6'1", fighting at a great weight category as well, where there's a lot of shorter men in there as well. I think he's going to be very, very dangerous, very, very dangerous on the ground and on the feet. He's got a very, very well-rounded game plan coming into this. What else are you looking forward to on Saturday night? Obviously, I've got the fight card here in front of me now, and there's a lot of kind of unknown names here, but people that have had quite a lot of fights. And to be honest with you, there's quite a lot of young fighters on here with regards to the amount of fights that they've actually had. Wally Alves 14-4, Yancy Medeiros 15-7. Is there anything else in the prelims that you're looking forward to, or should we just jump straight into the main card?
I think I want to mention quickly is Barcelos, Raoni Barcelos against Valiev. This guy kind of last year had that amazing victory over Kali Taha, and everyone was kind of like talking really highly about him. He's had a couple of fights fall off, I think, since then. But this is great matchmaking. It's two really kind of like underrated bantamweights. Barcelos hasn't lost, I think, in 7 or 8 years. And Barcelos always comes out and has those kind of, for that kind of weight category, there's usually some more decisions. He kind of comes out and he's got a very kind of aggressive kind of style. He gets a lot of stoppage victories. But Valiev has always been regarded as being very tough and durable. I think that's a great fight to look out for in the prelims. And I really fancy Barcelos to get a victory there and kind of move on. I think at the moment he's 16-1, so he's got a great record, and I fancy him to kind of get a victory on Saturday night. So if you're looking for another fight in the prelims, that could be a bit of a barn burner at bantamweight.
Yeah, because sometimes, the prelims, as we've said this a million times on this show, man, the prelims is where you find these fighters that are literally fighting for like 15 grand. They're fighting for 15, 20 grand, and they get a 5-win bonus. Do you know what I mean? When they publish the pay-per-view payments after, and you're looking at the early prelims and they're making 10 and 10, and you think, wow, that's, it's a lot of work. And these guys and girls have really, really put in the effort to get noticed. Was it Cassie O'Neill that had a fantastic performance Saturday night? And I doubt we're going to see her on the early prelims anymore, because she'll be slowly making her way up if she continues to put on performances like that.
Yeah, definitely. And like going back to Barcelos, I think I was looking today on Tapology, and Barcelos is ranked number 16 in the world. So he's right on the cusp now of cracking the top 15. So a win here on Saturday night and a great victory, it might not, but it might just squeeze him into the top 15 come the rankings being published on Tuesday.
Yeah, man, absolutely. And then the first fight on the main card, we've got Renato Moycano versus Jai Herbert. Now, the records are not too dissimilar. Jai Herbert with a 10-2, Renato Moycano with 14-4. But Moycano coming off of a pretty damaging loss to Vizayev, who's obviously very, very highly touted as well. How do you think his game plan is going to come into this? How do you think his mindset and implementing his game plan is going to be coming in on Saturday, fighting someone with a 10-2 record?
Well, it's interesting with Renato Moycano because you look at the people he's fought, and he's fought some really great fighters. Rafael Fiziev is someone that we're really high up on, on this podcast. We think he's a potential future star in the UFC, but I know it's a different weight category, but he's got a win over Calvin Kattar, which is no joke. Obviously that was obviously at featherweight, not lightweight, which this fight is at the weekend. But and he also looked very, very good when he fought Jose Aldo, but obviously lost that fight. So he has got some very good kind of UFC experience. Which speaks a lot of what the UFC think of Jai Herbert, though, to put him in there against a guy like Renato Moycano. They obviously really feel that he's got a lot of talent. I think this is definitely going to be a stand-up fight. And you know what? I actually fancy Jai Herbert, because one thing that I have got for Moycano is that I don't think he's got the greatest chin in the world.
Mm.
And I think if Jai Herbert can crack him, he might end up giving in on himself. We've seen that obviously against Fiziev, and Jai Herbert obviously out of Team Renegade as well in Birmingham, which has some great strikers, obviously Leon and Fabian Edwards, most famously. So I really quite fancy Jai Herbert in this to try and get a win in the UFC and to notch a nice win in the UFC win column for himself on Saturday night. But Moycano, with all that experience, when you've been there with guys like Jose Aldo, that's some all-time great fighters, maybe the experience might help him through. But I'm going to go for the British guy, and let's see if Jai Herbert can get it done.
Yeah, because just looking at Jai Herbert's record, he's got a lot of KO/TKO victories, whereas Renato Moycano has got 0. So you'd like to think that this is going to be a very much let's get him to the ground game, try and get a submission here from Renato Moycano, because is he going to be able to knock him out on the feet? Probably not, because in the 14 wins that he's had, he's never been able to knock anyone out. So I doubt very, very highly that it's going to be a knockout victory for him on Saturday. But I'm sure the odds makers will look at this and be like, right, I think it's going to be a KO here for Jai Herbert, as you say, man.
Yeah, definitely. Like you said, if he's never knocked someone out in his 14 fights, the game plan for Herbert should be simple: keep this on the feet, and in the end, you should be able to crack him. Because, like I said, out of all the lightweights in the world, I don't think Moycano has the best chin. So Herbert's game plan should definitely be keep this on the feet for as long as you possibly can. And I'm sure you'll find the opening to get a victory via KO.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. I think that'll be a good fight, to be fair. I think it'll be a good fight. It'll be a mixed match of styles as well. I think Moycano's definitely going to try and pull it to the ground, try and, even if he pulls guard or something, just try and get him working off his back and start putting Jai Herbert in some damaging positions on the ground.
And like Jai Herbert, this is a great opportunity as well. This is going to be a 9 o'clock main card start in the UK. If you love your kind of combat sport, you're going to be on prime time in the UK at 9 o'clock on BT. So it's a great opportunity for him.
Completely. It really is. It really is. And obviously with Bellator being on the BBC as well, and a few fight cards that are being a little bit earlier and a bit kind of leaned more towards the European fans, it's ideal for new MMA fans to really enjoy watching mixed martial arts at a very, very high level at a decent time as well. I myself stayed up until 3 a.m. this weekend, and it was, not one of the worst ones that we've ever had. Me and you, we've been speaking at 6, 7 o'clock in the morning when we've been watching the pay-per-views, but even 3 a.m. on a Saturday, it kind of throws you off for your whole week,
Definitely.
And then the next fight up is Nicholas Dalby versus Tim Means. So we go from two gentlemen that have got very, very little experience in mixed martial arts combined, really, to 31-12 versus a 19-3 in Dalby. Who have you got touted for this one?
You know what? I feel like as British MMA fans, we've got a bit of an affection for Nicholas Dalby. A guy that's obviously been in Cage Warriors before, and it's kind of great to see him back out a bit more regularly. Both these guys are two big guys at welterweight. And like I said, they've both got huge experience. And actually, I feel like they're very similar fighters. They're they have the same kind of style, and I think this is actually a really good matchup, despite it actually not being the original matchup. I think it's actually quite a good one, and I think this is another really close fight, a bit like Herbert and Moycano is. I've got to go for Nicholas Dalby though, because I just want to see the kind of he's had a tough kind of couple of years, Nicholas Dalby, before he's been back on track. He's been very open, honest about his mental health struggles at times, and it's nice to see him back in there and securing victory. So fingers crossed, Nicholas Dalby can get it done on Saturday. And also a win over someone like Tim Means is a bit of a statement victory. This guy has been around a long time. He's fought some really great fighters across the years, and I feel like it's an opportunity for him to kind of continue on that upward trajectory that he's currently on for Nicholas Dalby.
And Tim Means, his last win out was against Mike Perry, and Mike Perry, as we all know, would have been a fantastic fighter should he not have taken so many hits to the head and attacked a glass window. But do you think Dalby is going to be in a similar sort of amount of pressure on Tim Means, or do you think it's going to be a kind of one-sided fight from Dalby, who's got a very, very good record. He's won a very good stretch as well.
I think the thing is, like, I think the thing to Tim Means is that the kind of age he is now and the kind of record he's had, experience goes a long way in these fights. And sometimes, we were just saying before we started that, like, look at Matt Brown last weekend. Sometimes in fights, the experience goes a long way and you find a way to get the job done. So Nicholas Dalby, for me, I would have him maybe as a slight favourite going into this, but definitely don't write off Tim Means. He did. I know it was against Mike Perry, but he did look very good last time out, I thought. And, I just think that maybe experience could help him through this. But if I'm looking at it, I do fancy Nicholas Dalby. I don't think it will be a finish, but I think it will be, and I think it's going to be a really tough 15 minutes for both of them. But I fancy Nicholas Dalby to get a nice, hard-earned decision victory this weekend.
Fingers crossed he does, because these two gentlemen are not the youngest in the world, being 36 and 37. So, as we always kind of say, this is a young man's game, and they are definitely on the back end of their careers now. So it's nice to see them go out with a couple of wins. Even if Dalby was to scrape through to a decision and not make a great amount of damage, we can still see him fight, maybe another one, maybe two more times before the year is out. And it's nice. It's nice when people, no one wants to see an old man get beat up, basically.
And respect to these two gentlemen, Nicholas Dalby's taking this on late notice as well. So, he's stepped up. He's got himself over from Denmark to the US. When opportunities present themselves, you've got to take them in this game. And, Nicholas Dalby has certainly done that, as has Tim Means. He could have said no to this fight. He chose to say yes. Respect to both gentlemen. And hopefully we get a great fight on Saturday.
Yeah, and then we got Andre Fili versus Daniel Pineda. What do you make of this fight? Because I feel like I remember Fili's name. I'm not sure why. I remember Pineda's name. I'm not sure why. I feel like these are kind of floating fighters for me. That neither of them have done anything sort of amazingly significant for me to remember them. And as big as the roster is, we do very, very well remembering fighters. Do you know what I mean? And there's not a lot of fighters we don't know at least a little bit about. But for these two gentlemen, I don't know if I've just got, mental block or what it is, but tell me, is there anything exciting about either of these guys for you?
Not massively, to be honest. We're talking about, again, like Pineda. I don't really know a lot about him, but he's had like over 40 fights, professional, MMA fights, which is crazy, but I literally don't know barely anything about him. I was reading today that obviously his last fight, he lost to Cub Swanson. He has had a win over Herbert Burns, who is obviously Gilbert's brother. When I look at this fight, though, I think Fili's the favourite, and rightfully so. He has a height and reach advantage. He has fought recently, for me, better competition. He lost last November to Bryce Mitchell, who is very highly rated in the UFC. So I would say that probably Fili coming into this is in a better position to maybe get the win. I expect him to keep Pineda at range, and avoid Pineda's power, which apparently is one of his biggest attributes, Pineda. So again, though, when I think about this fight, to me, not knowing too much about each gentleman, this kind of says to me that maybe we're looking at a decision kind of victory, and maybe I'm going to have to go with Andre Fili just because I feel like he has the attributes physically to get through this fight. And also I feel like he's fought the better competition recently as well, because Bryce Mitchell is seriously highly rated, at the moment.
I'm just looking at his fight history now. Obviously, like you say, he lost to Bryce Mitchell, but then prior to that, got a win over Charles Jourdain, and then he lost to Sadiq Youssef, and then it's kind of a loss to Michael Johnson. He beat the GOAT in Artem Lobov, a loss to Kelvin Keita, a loss to Yair Rodriguez. So it's a very mixed bag here. It's kind of like a win, loss, loss, win, loss, loss, win. It's a bit of an up and down for Andre Touchy Fili, which is obviously one of the better nicknames in the UFC, definitely. But Daniel Pineda, I'm just going to have a look at his record now, because I'm not convinced. He's lost a lot of times by submission, so clearly maybe not the best ground game in the world.
Yeah.
And like you say, lost to Cub Swanson via punches last time out. So I think it'll be there's a big age difference between these two gentlemen as well. Pineda is 5 years older than Feely, so that could also play quite a big part in this fight as well.
Yeah, I think also when you're just naming all the people that Andre Feely's fought, despite it being a bit of an up and down record, there are some very good names on there. You know, Keita, Yair Rodriguez, Bryce Mitchell. You know, there are some, that's high level names, and maybe when you're being there with the top guys, maybe that's enough sometimes to help you through fights with guys that you are expected to beat. And I do think that Andre Feely's expected to beat Pineda this weekend.
Yeah, no, that's where my money's going to be going. I'm going to put. What do you think, Moycano? Maybe Moycano. I might do a little tribble. Moycano, Dalby, and Feely, or even Jai Herbert. I'm not sure.
Moycano, Dalby, and Feely. Yeah, that's probably not a bad one, mate. That's probably not a bad shout.
Yeah, I mean, I only put a pound on anyway, so I'm not going to be remortgaging. Do you know what I mean?
I might put my mortgage on Rachmanov.
Well, you probably wouldn't get a lot back. Sometimes, when these fighters are so, it's like putting any money on Shevchenko. You put a pound on her and you get £1.07 back, and you think, what's the point? She's almost guaranteed to win. It's like in boxing, I went to put some bets on in boxing the other day, and I put a pound on for every single one of the favourites to win, and I would get £1.15 back. And you just think, how bad is the matchmaking? I think we're so lucky, to watch MMA and to be MMA fans, because the matchmaking is so much better than in boxing. It's almost like in boxing they go, right, well, you're going to fight this guy, basically you're going to lose, all right, and then just hope for the best. Whereas in mixed martial arts, it is literally any man's game in there, which 100%, is
man.
Very, very true for the next gentleman, Kennedy and Nzechukwu, who last time out fought Carlos Ulberg, and the New Zealander that came out from City Kickboxing with his chiseled jaw and his perfect six-pack, very attractive man. And Nzechukwu with his old school high top. I love that. I love it. He took a lot of work in the first and second round, I believe it was, and then Ulberg just completely gassed out. But Nzechukwu looked very, very good. I think he had a great shell. He didn't let in a lot of the shots, weathered the storm early, and then he managed to get the TKO or the KO, I believe it was. So up against Danilo Marquez. Who have you got in this fight then? Because Nzechukwu is obviously getting this fight because of his win over Ulberg, and his win over Ulberg is because, in two ways about it, Ulberg completely emptied his gas tank in the first and second and had nothing left to give. So how do you think he goes up against Marquez, who's 11-2? And like I say, this whole card is built up with guys that have got very, very small amounts of experience within the UFC.
You know what? I'm going to be perfectly honest. I haven't done too much notes on this fight, but if I had to look at this fight and take a kind of like wild stab of it, while you're saying like both guys haven't got much experience, this feels like a fight that could go either way. Both guys aren't too highly touted, but kind of it feels like Nzechukwu kind of has a bit more kind of like hype around him. Probably because of the Carlos Ulberg thing, because when Carlos Ulberg was about to start fighting, everyone at City Kickboxing was telling you this guy was the next champion. And it was like, all right, well, let's see how he gets on then. And then, like you said, he looked pretty good for 10 minutes and then completely gassed out. And he was like a sitting duck in that last round,
It was halfway through the second round. He gassed out even earlier than we expected. It was in 7 minutes he gassed out.
Hey, well, apologies. That is not good. That is a definite back to the drawing board job for Carlos Ulberg. If you're gassing out after 7 minutes, there's a problem there, a big problem. So, but yeah, no, like Nzechukwu, like I felt like it almost worked out perfectly for him in a way, because you kind of have nothing to lose when you fight someone like Carlos Ulberg, who comes in really highly rated. No one's expecting you to win. They're kind of expecting, Ulberg to kind of get the job done pretty damn quickly. And when you go out there, you finish him, people then start to pay a bit more attention to you, especially when it's on a numbered card, which I think it was on at the time. So, do you know what? I know more about Nzechukwu than I do about Marquez. I don't know much about him or what his kind of record is looking like or who he's fought recently, but I'm sure it'd be a good fight. If you're putting it kind of quite high up on the main card, there's obviously got to be a bit of interest for these two gentlemen. But let's go with Nzechukwu to get it done.
I'm just looking here, and Marquez has got a lot of submission wins. Obviously, very, very good at Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. He's come, in the Damian Maia Jiu-Jitsu Association. Do you know what I mean? So I think, and he's got 5 submission wins. He hasn't lost by submission at all. 4 KOs, 2 decisions. Up against Nzechukwu, whose only loss is against Paul Craig, who is obviously a ground game specialist. I feel like Marquez is going to want to take it to the floor straight away and be chasing a sub. And I feel like Nzechukwu gets caught up in that, if I'm honest with you. If this stays on the feet, I think Nzechukwu would have a very good chance on weathering the storm. But I feel like Marquez is gonna twist him up very, very early on. 6'6" as well. Wow, very tall gentleman.
Well, look, now you told me all those statistics and all that information, I'm not going to disagree with you. That sounds like a guy who is going to find a way to get him to the floor at some point, and Nzechukwu could be in for a bit of a horrible night on the ground. So who knows, man? Look, as long as the fight's competitive, that's all that really matters. Nzechukwu has a bit of success on the feet, Marquez has some success on the ground, and, it should be a great fight.
It should be. And fingers crossed it will be. And it'll be a decent time for us in Europe. That is all that matters, really, isn't it? That is all that matters at the end of the day. And then the co-main is Tanner Boser versus Ove St. Preux. And Ove St. Preux is getting, he's getting on the back end of his career now. And his last performance out, he looked very, very lazy, I thought. And he looked very tentative with his movements. I didn't feel like he was putting everything into it when he fought Jamal Hill. And clearly Jamal Hill, his arms just dislocate left, right and center. So he, can't be that good. All things considered, he's an older gentleman as well, 38. And although Anderson Silva beat Chavez at the weekend, not everyone can do that at age 44. And Ove St. Preux, I think, is definitely going to be fighting for his career here at the weekend. But what do you think? Do you think Tanner Boser turns this up after his loss against Ilir Latifi, or do you think Ove St. Preux is going to turn back the clock?
I think both gentlemen have got to turn up this weekend. I think both guys, in some respects, are fighting for UFC, careers going forwards. It's so funny how this game turns people around, though, because Tanner Boser, like last year, I think he went 2-0 or 3-0, and people were talking real high of Tanner Boser, and he's had 2 losses. I think it was once to Arlovsky, and then obviously then to Latifi, and people are now saying maybe this guy's about to get cut if he loses to OSP at the weekend. It's crazy how much the game can turn on you so quickly. I think it's really positive that Tanner Boser has chosen to come back out here really quickly after the Latifi performance, to try and get himself back on track. I did see an interview today, though, saying that he hasn't got any of his corner team with him this weekend because of COVID. So he's going to have a completely new corner team, which seems crazy. But, there we go. He says he knows how to fight, so it doesn't really matter. Okay, fine. With OSP, it's really interesting, though, because for me, he's just so inconsistent. This is a guy that fought for a title against John Jones, 5 years ago? He just looks done. He looks tired, worn out, not interested. Just looks a shell of the person he used to be, really. I just don't think there's enough to convince me. Just definitely enough to convince me that he can win this weekend. I think that Tanner Boser is just going to be hungry for all this. I think if you ask both guys right now who wants to stay in the UFC more, I think Tanner Boser wins that, every day of the week and twice on a Sunday. So I just think that I think at 38 and, 40 professional fights into your career, I think OSP is just thinking, do you know what? It's not been a bad career, but thanks very much. While Boser's kind of like, no, I want to continue, want to keep on going, want to keep on fighting. I still think I've got a lot to give in the UFC, which I agree with. I think last year was really positive. This year's been a terrible start, but, one fight can change it all in this, in mixed martial arts. And a win over OSP, get yourself back on track, get yourself back out there a couple more times this year, and it could end up being a pretty good year. But yeah, I'm going to take Tanner Boser in this. I just think he'll want it more. And I think that goes a long way in mixed martial arts.
He's only 29. He's such a young guy to be in the heavyweight division, coming in at 242 pound, which, as we know, is not too bad, because sometimes they come in at 264, which is just frustrating. But yeah, exactly like you say. I think Tanner Boser's got a lot more to give the UFC than Ovsane Prue. And Ovsane Prue has had a very, very decorated career. Some of his wins have been fantastic. He's got wins over Corey Anderson, and that's probably about it in the past 10 years. Nikita Krylov, in the early days of Nikita Krylov. And then obviously, I think Krylov got a win back over him as well. His last losses are Jamal Hill, Bren Rothwell, Krylov, Reyes. Very, very good, very good competitors in the heavyweight division. But he's had a real stretch of it. If you go back 5 years, like you were saying, when he lost to John Jones, he then lost to Jimmy Manoa and Volkan Ozdemir as well. So he's been up against some absolute killers. And I think he's probably just trying to see out the rest of his career now. He's probably got one fight left, maybe 2 fights left. I'm not sure what he's like mentally, whether he wants to stay in the game or... Go ahead.
I'm pretty sure that both these gentlemen have 1 fight left in their contract. This is their last fight on each other on their contracts.
They are literally fighting for their careers if they want to continue in the UFC, because we see so many people at that kind of age maybe nip over to Bellator. Corey Anderson, prime example. He went over there, and then unfortunately for him, Yoel Romero went over there as well and decided to get neck surgery. When he'll be back, no one will know. But Bellator's, as much as we disrespect it, it's not full of scrubs at all, especially in the heavyweight division. They've got some real killers over there. Light heavyweight, they've got some real killers. But that leads us up perfectly to the 2 heavyweights that are going to be fighting on the main event of this card. Cyril Gane coming in with an 8-0 record versus Alexander Volkov with his 33-8. It's crazy that Volkov has had the same amount of losses in his record as Garn has fights in his whole entire career. Garn is obviously very, very highly touted as well, because he is a man mountain. This guy is built like a Greek Adonis. Do you know what I mean? He's a beast, man. He's a big guy, From his last performance out and from the past couple of performances out that he's had, I felt like he's definitely showed his inexperience, especially against Biggie Boy, Rosenstruik. I didn't feel like he looked overly impressive at all. What did you think of his performance last time out?
Yeah, it wasn't impressive. You're right, but when we said this at the time when we did the review podcast for that card, these guys, they're not paid to be entertaining. They're they're just there to win. And at the end of the day, he got the W, man. Like he's like, he got the win. You look at the kind of path since then. Biggie Boy had to go and fight Sakai, who was down there like the 9 and 10 range. And Garner's fighting Volkov this weekend, which whoever wins this fight is probably, after Derek Lewis and John Jones, the guy to fight for the title, probably. So this is actually a huge fight at heavyweight, for both gentlemen. The difference in experience, though, is crazy. Volkov over 40 fights, former kind of Bellator champion, and Garn just kind of almost just starting off in his career. But I mean, when was the last time we saw a guy so highly rated who's had such little experience? It's crazy, People are saying that this is the guy, that Garn against Ngannou for the heavyweight title is going to happen at some point. Like, it's crazy, like people know how highly thought of he is. I think he's fantastic, mostly because I think he's got the ability on the feet to knock people out, and he has shown that he can submit people as well. And I think weekend, that's going to prove really important. Volkov on the feet is super, super dangerous. He's shown that across his career, that his striking is really underrated, and actually it's really quite good. And that actually at times, I think Cyril Garn's going to look to take this to the floor because he knows that he's got submission victories in the bank. He knows that he's probably maybe a bit better on the floor than Volkov, and that he can potentially tie him up somewhere and maybe beat him by submission. For Volkov, man, you just keep this on the feet for as long as possible, because if you can do what you did to Overeem, to Garn, you're going to, and what you've done to other people before then, you're going to find yourself causing Garn some serious problems with that lack of experience. So it's a really intriguing matchup. I think it's a fantastic matchup. And I do think Cyril Garn gets this done, though. And I actually think Cyril Garn's actually going to win this by submission. I think he's going to find a way to get this to the floor. And I think he might submit Volkov this weekend.
I'm going to have to disagree with you, Matt, my friends. I just think that Volkov has got fantastic hands. And it goes to show by his record of 22 KO/TKO victories, 3 submissions. He's only been submitted twice out of the 8 losses he had. Wins over Alistair Overeem, who obviously put a stop to the one last run thing. The body kick versus Walt Harris, and then finishing him off with punches as well. A decision loss to Curtis Blades in a 5-round fight. That's not that bad. Curtis Blades is a very good wrestler. If my memory serves me right, it was a lot of domination from Curtis Blades. Obviously, it being a unanimous as well. A win over Greg Hardy. A loss to Derek Lewis in the final seconds of their fight. The final 10 seconds it was a knockout in the final 10 seconds, which is very, very unfortunate, but he might have been cruising to a victory there as well. Fabricio Verdum, Stefan Struve, Roy Nelson. I mean, the level of competition that Volkov has had over the past couple of years, the past 5 years, is phenomenal compared to what the 3 good fighters that Cyril Garn has had to fight over his past couple of fights out. I think the experience here from Volkov is going to play a massive part, and also the length as well. The length of the punches, the awkwardness of the punches. He managed to still get round Overeem's guard. Obviously, we love Overeem here because he's born and bred in the UK. The Netherlands can't take him away from us. But we knew at the back end of his career, he would just shell up and just take some punches. And it was kind of like a hope for the best. If you caught him a couple of times with a jab, he was going down, unfortunately, due to his age and everything. But I feel like Volkov will be able to get through Garn's guard. I don't think Cyril's going to be able to take it to the ground. I feel like Volkov's too long and too awkward for that as well. There's going to be a lot of cage work from Garn, but I feel like Volkov is going to be able to get away from the cage, keep it in the middle of the octagon, and I think he's going to finish him inside 3 rounds.
Hey, well, look, 2 things, right? First of all, I didn't say for a second that I'd be putting my £1 bet on a submission. I just thought I'd go Billy Big Bollocks, basically, and see if we can get something crazy happening. I think that your shout of Volkov inside 3 is also pretty bold. But, we'll see. One of us might be right. Who knows, eh? Who knows? But I was saying last night about the experience is huge for Volkov, and that is such a big thing. That is, there's just fights across this whole card where you look at them and you think how the experience can play a huge factor. And when you read the list of names that Volkov's fought, it's crazy. Like, the names are, they're absolutely legit. So, and this is the test though for Garn, right? So if Cyril Garn does beat Volkov, whatever way, decision, submission, TKO, KO, whatever it is, at that point then I think you have to go, this guy, this kid basically, who's had no experience, not a lot of experience in the UFC, or in mixed martial arts as a whole, I think you have to go at that point, he is 100% legit. If you can beat Volkov and stop this streak that he's currently on, I think people at that point then will start to lose their minds over him, to be honest. So, yeah, it's a big night for Cyril Garn. It's also a huge night for Volkov because, like I said, whoever comes through this, they're so close to a title shot at that point. They're so close.
And I think this will be the title eliminator, unless John Jones needs to work out what he's doing with his life, and then the heavyweight division can kind of go from there. But at the moment, it's just a little bit frustrating that Jones is kind of holding it all up.
Oh man, it's super frustrating that Jones is holding it up. If it was me, and this might be a bit of a controversial one, I would personally say, look, whoever wins this on Saturday night, you're fighting John Jones. John Jones in your title shot. Derek Lewis is getting that title shot. That's a fact. That's simple now. It's going to be Ngannou Lewis later on in the summer, whenever that is. John Jones, like, what does he want to do? He could wait it out. He will get a title shot if he really wants it because it's John Jones. But I would not hate to see John Jones have a fight before he fights for a title heavyweight, and John Jones against Garn or John Jones against Volkov. Man, that would be pretty. That wouldn't be bad at all.
Not at all. But if Garn comes through this at the weekend, he's got to fight Stipe. You'd think in the heavyweight division, because Stipe, although he lost the title last time out, he is still very, very much in the question and in the mix for who's going to be fighting who. Although Derek Lewis might be getting the title shot, I feel like if Garn gets through this, he's got to get through Stipe to get himself to a title shot.
And man, what a fight that would be! Cyril Garn against Stipe Miocic. That is a hell of a fight.
But for me, that is Miocic all day long, because Miocic has beaten people like Ngannou. He's beaten people like Derek Lewis, Daniel Cormier twice. Someone like Cyril Garn, you'd think that Miocic would be able to completely steamroll him.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you. If I had to put my couple of quid on now, all my money's going on Stipe to beat Cyril Garn. As much as I love Cyril Garn, like you say, man, Stipe is the greatest heavyweight to do it. So, yeah, despite that kind of brutal loss to Ngannou, let's not forget he's world class, man.
Yeah, I feel like there should be a lot of movement in the heavyweight division over the next coming months. We need to see Ngannou fight again. We need to see Derek Lewis fight again. But I feel like this fight here is a good one to set us off with what's going on in the top 5, top 6 of the heavyweight division.
Definitely, man. I totally agree.
Yeah. So that's it from us. We are looking forward to these fights at the weekend. And then, of course, we have a week off, I believe, before we have the trilogy. The trilogy of Dustin Poirier versus Conor McGregor, which is going to be an absolute banger. This man sets record after record after record. And obviously, Conor McGregor is going to be looking for a win here to solidify himself as a legend of the game. Although he is a legend. But the majority of things is for the wrong reasons per se, and not necessarily what he's done inside the octagon, but he needs to get back into the win column and to stay in the win column for a little while, I feel, before he can really solidify himself as one of the greatest of all time. When we talk about the greatest of all time, he's not in that conversation, is he?
He's not in certain aspects. He is in other aspects. For me, he is some of the greatest of all time. He changed the game, the money, all that kind of stuff. He has to be credited in that aspect. Mm-hmm. He is also the first champ as well. That can't be taken away from him. The first guy to kind of do it. You have to kind of respect that. And there's a big kind of like desperation now you see for fighters to become champ. Conor was the first one to do it. So, he is a special talent, obviously, and he is one of the greats. And there's nothing, like we always say, there's nothing quite like a Conor McGregor fight week. And this is a big one now. And this is going to be a real test for Dustin, a real test, because this is going to be full crowd, media week, ceremonial weigh-in. Ireland is going to descend on Las Vegas on the 10th of July. It's a big one for Dustin. I think he goes into it as the favourite, but it would not surprise me if Conor turns up big time and finds himself winning that fight and fighting Charles Oliveira before the end of the year for a lightweight title. That would not surprise me one bit.
And as we know, anything can happen in mixed martial arts. Anything can happen.
And also, that co-main event now, Gilbert Burns, Stephen Wonderboy Thompson, is an unbelievable fight as well. That is a fantastic co-main event.
Yeah, the card is really, really shaping up nicely. If we'd have looked at it a couple of weeks ago, it did look a little bit light. I feel like whenever there's a Conor McGregor fight, they go, you know what, people are going to buy pay-per-views anyway because they want to see Conor McGregor. Let's just chuck on who, what, and where underneath him because no one's really going to mind because they're going to pay anyway. And then we see cards like this weekend where you think, you know what, we're not paying for it because, we watch on BT Sport or whatever, but this is a good card, man. If there was this card and then it was built up to Conor McGregor versus Dustin Poirier at the top, then, would you get more views? Maybe. I don't know. I don't know, but we'll have to wait and see. And I'm looking forward to breaking that down with you, my friend. Until next time, thank you very much for making it to the end of the episode. As I said at the beginning, if you do like our content, hit subscribe, hit like, drop us a comment. Let us know if you agree with anything that we said or if you disagree with anything we said. People do. We disagree with each other. We agree with each other. It's how the world works. And you can find us over on Spotify, Google Podcasts, and Apple Podcasts. Until next time, we will be doing a breakdown of this next weekend. Until next time, George, thank you very much. Peace.